Hello and welcome back to a new episode. So today we are kicking off the DKOldies Repair and Recondition series, and we're going to start it off with this particular PS2. Now this is the one that said that the drive doesn't open, and then it also said laser question mark, which if you watched the previous video, which the link will be in the description if you haven't seen it already when I unboxed it, we had two PS2s in that lot. The first one was just a no power issue, which I've already repaired, reconditioned, and shipped it out. So that one's gone. But this one is the one that we're going to be focusing on today, because this one's got that sticky disk drive. Now, in my experience, when it comes to sticky disk drives, what really the main underlying issue is dust and debris over time gets in there and basically just gums up the works. So I've got a very good success rate of just disassembling, cleaning, and reassembling the disk drive, so that's what we're going to be doing today. I'm not going to go into the other stuff on this particular one, so we're just focusing solely on the disk drive. Now, I'm sure that there's going to be a lot of people that have different methods on doing this, and that's totally okay. There's multiple ways to go about doing this. This is just the way that I do it, and the way that I feel comfortable doing it, and that I've had a lot of success with. But if you have any other comments or techniques or anything like that, definitely leave them down in the comment section below. I'm always up to hearing other people's perspectives, so yeah. So without further ado, let's crack this baby open and see what we're dealing with. So just as a bit of a refresher, this is what we're dealing with. Yeah, we'll get that free and working as it should. First things first, we gotta remove this GameStop refurbished sticker. Actually, that really wasn't even on. Alright, so we're probably just gonna breeze through the disassembly. I mean, I've shown this so many times on this channel. But we'll just speed through it, so if you're following along and you've never been here before, at least you can still get some kind of information. God, these two screws all the way on the right hand side, they're in there tight. Also don't know if they've been cross-threaded or not. Although in the screw's defense, this screwdriver I'm using isn't exactly the best. I got it for free with something, like a couple of years ago, like 2-3 years ago. It's one of those Amazon freebies when you bought like a kit of something. Sometimes like when you buy parts or whatever, you'll get like those freebies. Those freebie tools, which are generally usually useless, but in this case that screwdriver's actually been pretty useful for me. Yeah, to me it looks like somebody's been in here before. I've never seen tape here on the power switch, which makes me think that when this was open last, this might have broke. There's like a little nub that goes underneath that holds this in. This might have broke, so that's why that's there. And then it looks like they just replaced it with another sticker. So we're gonna take this off, because this usually will sit on the top of the disk drive with a piece of tape from the factory. Alright, let's see if my theory might be correct. This is actually damaged. Yeah, that is in there pretty loose. Yep. There's a piece of broken plastic there. That's why this was in there, was holding it in. Or we can, the nub's still on the switch here, we can probably just epoxy that back. But we'll figure that out when we get to it during reassembly, what we're gonna do. Alright, with those screws removed, should just come right out of the shell now. Very good. Alright, so the first impression of this opening so far, it's actually not that bad in here. It's just the usual kind of dust that'll accumulate naturally through normal usage. So, no surprises here so far. With the system flipped upside down, we gotta get these 4 connectors off. Now, this is gonna be different console to console. The last one that I opened was a 30,001, and this one is, I didn't even look. This one's a 39,001. So the disk drive between different PS2 models and even within its own model sometimes will be a little different. So the basics between all of them are going to be the same, but there are going to be some variations. I'll try to point some of them out as we go along. So on that 30,000 model that I just did, they aren't ribbon cables that are going in except for the power switch. They're more of just connectors. And the clock battery is on the disk drive. And I think that that's the best model disk drive to work on because it's simple. If the clock battery ever goes dead, it's easy to replace. You don't have to strip down to the motherboard. And we'll come back to that one. It's being a little bit of a pain. I might need different forceps for that. Just use my finger. There it goes. That one was a little more of a pain in the butt than usual. So we have one more ribbon cable we have to remove, and that's in the laser. Now, unfortunately for me, I usually pop the drive before taking out all the cables, but since I already went and did all the cables, I might have to just try to manually eject this. Now, I could just pop the drive and then just carefully take it out, but it's a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's not a whole lot of space to squeeze your hand in to unclasp the connector and then pull the cable out, so this might just end up being the easiest way going about it. Oh, the disk drive's actually moving. So we're going to remove the tray here. This will be a little easier getting that ribbon cable. While we're at it, we might as well just pop it off. Yeah, that's front bezel's loose too, so we're going to have to glue it. I'm going to try my best not to... get this to fall off. It'll be a lot easier putting it back on. It'll be a much more secure thing. Well, so far from what I'm seeing, the disk drive actually looks to be in pretty clean shape. If I can get the screwdriver into the screw. Alright, so then we're just going to lift it out with the rail. We'll actually, yeah, we can probably leave that in. Just going to flip it over. 2 tabs either side. Man, I am really failing with my fingers today. And then we'll just put this back in for now. And I know this is going to seem counterintuitive. We're going to put the lid back on. It's just going to make sure everything in there is protected when we flip it back over. So we're only going to put 2 screws in. One in the corner here, one in the corner there. That'll lock it down. I know people are going to say that this is taking me extra time, but I'd rather take the extra time and make sure everything is safe and make my job easier than to just kind of manhandle things. I always do this with a flathead. If you have a plastic spudger, that works too. Just going to put it in, pop it up, then you're going to flip it around. A little bit of place to get a little purchase, and out it comes. Might also be able to try wiggling it out. Oh, that's right, we're connected at the back there. I swear I've done this before. Yeah, the fan gets in the way. So just gonna remove all this. Okay, with that embarrassment out of the way, now we can lift the disk drive out. Easy peasy. And now we'll be taking the lid off again. But on the plus side, this won't be back on until we're ready for reassembly. Lid comes off. And I always pop this out. This comes right out. Actually looks to be in pretty good shape. We'll clean that by hand. This will just go into the pile that needs to go into the sink. So next thing I want to do is I want to remove the whole sled mechanism here. So there's 4 screws. On this particular model, the brass ones are on the top. The silver ones are on the bottom. Also, my little hot tip if you're ever doing this for the first time, just like actually anything with electronics when you're doing it the first time, pictures, pictures, pictures. Take pictures every step of the way so you know where things go. I've just opened up so many of these, I just know at this point. Alright, so we're just going to set that aside there. Now the next thing I want to remove is this metal tray. So I'm going to use a flathead, or anything pokey really. I'm gonna push, lift up. Actually, I'm gonna use a different bit. I think the flathead might be a little too much for this. So we'll just use, why not a Phillips? Just comes out. Just be careful not to break anything. I did it a little too violently on that first one, but you get the idea. So now the next thing I want to do is I want to get into here. Now this is actually where some of the differences in the disk drives comes into play. And on older disk drive models like that 30,001 model that the other DKOldies one was, the screw to access it is actually on the top. And that makes servicing so much easier. Like say the disk drive belt is not functioning properly or it's too stretched out, you need to either replace it or boil it. You can just remove it there. But if you have to get into here, you have to go through all this. Well, maybe not that, but you have to remove the disk drive to access that screw right there. It's funny because people on Reddit like always post the question which PS2 I should get. A lot of times I always recommend the FAT 30,001. And people are like, oh, that's the weakest one because of the laser. Well, all the FATs at some point are going to have laser issues. I mean, that's just kind of the territory that you're in. But the thing is, as these things age, you definitely want something that's easy to work on. And the earlier models of PS2 are just easier to work on, is all. So that's why I tend to like them more. The 50,000 is also not too bad, but there are some annoyances with that disk drive too. But the 50,000 out of the FATs is the more robust one. And we got some broken plastic here. We'll have to figure out if that's needed or not. I'm actually not sure where those came off of. So taking out the gears is easy, they just come right out. Then once the gears are out, then the white metal piece comes out. But we do have to get this out. So this is another one of those things that could be different. On some models this is screwed in. This isn't the case here. This one actually slides right out. And we got one more thing to undo before it's ready for its bath, and that's take this screw out. And then we're going to remove the rail. Alright, here we are, my lovely kitchen sink. And we're just going to throw the parts in. And we'll just let them soak for a little bit. And then we're going to boil the belt for 15 minutes. So yeah, nothing really much to this. Seen it a million times on the channel. Just wipe it down, take it in with a toothbrush, rinse it. Pretty much it. Just clean it up. And then when you get to the white plastic pieces, what I like to do is just take a toothbrush, because I know it's coming up on camera, but there's a lot of gunk in here, and a lot of times that could be one of the things that jams up the disk drive, so you want to make sure you get as much of that off. So a little extra soap wouldn't hurt anything. It's been 15 minutes now, so we will shut off the stove and take it out and let the belt dry. Actually has a nice round shape, so it should be good. And we are back. It's been a couple days now, plastic's all dry, and really the only other thing we have to clean now is just the sled mechanism here. And honestly, it's really not that bad at all, so this will be a pretty easy one. We don't have to fully take everything apart. Really the only thing I'm going to worry about here is really just the laser, the worm gear, the rails, and then the spindle there. Start by removing the rails. I'll just clean the spindle while we're at it. Fairly dirty. And all I do with the rails is just take a rag, a little bit of alcohol, and just wipe them down. And then I'll clean the gunk off of these teeth for the guide there. That goes in the worm gear, and that's what moves the laser. Then the worm gear itself. So basically what I'm doing is just trying to get all the gunk and the old grease out. This one's actually pretty clean, so it's not really all that bad. Now what I'll do sometimes too, if there's like a lot of stuff in here, I'll just take a pick and then just run it through the teeth. Well, not the teeth, but the grooves. And then I'll take, I don't know if it's coming up on camera, but it took quite a bit of stuff out of there. Alright, now with that done, we can start reassembling this. As we're putting this back together, I'm gonna lube up the moving parts here. It's had grease before, so I'm gonna grease them back up again, obviously. So what I use is just white lithium grease. You can get it probably at any hardware store. I got this at an auto parts store. We'll just put a little bit of grease on. Don't have to go too crazy. I'm sure there's other grease that people use too. I just find lithium grease. It's just the cheapest and it works pretty well. I have lithium grease on pretty much every console I've serviced of my own, and I've never had an issue with it. Alright, that should be good. So now I'm gonna just grease up the left rail. Might be a little too much on there. Just wipe some of that off. Thread the right rail in. Now what I do when it comes to greasing the lasers, and you can do it any way you want, as long as it's lubricated, it's fine. But I put it a little bit in between. Because as this laser moves up and down, it actually traps the grease in between. I've seen GameCubes do it. Like when I open up GameCubes, they have the grease in between. And that seems to work well, because then it's not pushing it in any odd direction. And then I just put a little bit on the sides there. That's a little too much. So we'll take some of it away. Turn it and get a little bit underneath. And then the last thing I like to do before putting the disk drive back together is just clean the laser lens. A little 91% isopropyl alcohol, and that'll take off any dirt that's on top of the lens. We got the assortment of parts here. It's just a matter of putting it back together. So we'll start off with the belt motor. So basically I'm gonna line up the notches with the little pins on the bottom. You have to slide it underneath this nub first, and now that's in place. Oop, that's upside down. Actually, we should put this in first. There we go. Easy peasy so far. I did forget to wipe this down. Maybe I did the other day, I don't remember. A little extra rub down won't hurt it. So you gotta line the two nubs in the front here into the grooves into the white. And then just clicks into place. So that'll move the sled up and down. We drop this puppy in. Gotta remember the brass screws go on the top, silver screws on the bottom. If you forget, because the top screws go in the plastic, the threads on the screws are going to be more coarse. Since the bottom screws go in the metal, they're going to be finer threads. Just a little tip if you ever get confused. And before we put the belt on, it's going to take some isopropyl alcohol. Let's clean this spot up. Now we can put the belt back on. Now it's time to put the tray back together. First we're going to take the rail, just clean it off. And we're just going to put a little bit of grease on. In my rush, I completely forgot to put this on. Now we can put this back together. Just gonna make sure this is all the way off to the side, the white piece. And I didn't do it yet, but we're just gonna clean this real quick. And pop that back in. And now the task of plugging everything in. It's just easier to do it with the, it's just easier to do everything out of the tray. Gotta make sure everything's in nice and tight. On this particular disk drive, it's just, you just gotta slide them in. Actually, I think I put the power switch in upside down. And this tray goes first, and then the fan. Fan sits on, the whole thing in the back here sits on top of the disk drive. At least on this particular model. Now I gotta connect the laser ribbon cable. Yeah, it might do a little bit of a grinding sound at first. Sometimes that happens, sometimes it doesn't. It's just things trying to find its home. I just ended up hitting the eject button again. Now it's gonna sound kind of counterintuitive, but now we gotta take the laser back out. Probably another way to do this, but this is just the way I'm comfortable doing it. Now I'll just put these screws in. You shouldn't need to get back in here. So I bet you all thought I forgot about this, but I did not. I always tend to do it at the end. You can do this part any way you'd like, but we gotta glue this bezel back on. Now what I use is rubber cement, and really at the end of the day you can use whatever adhesive you feel comfortable using. I like to use rubber cement because personally for me it's more of like a sacrificial kind of layer. Like adhesive, it's strong enough to hold it in place during normal usage, but let's say years down the road this disk drive gets jammed again. First thing people usually do instinctively is pull on the bezel to try and open the drive. Now rubber cement's weak enough where it'll give way so it doesn't damage anything else in the disk drive, and then hopefully at that point they'll open it up and person would open it up and investigate. So it's personal preference for me. That's just what I like to use, but there's many different ways of doing it. Just gonna get this adhesive off. That's the other thing I like about rubber cement. You can easily clean it off, so you can get a little sloppy with it and just wipe it off with a little alcohol. So we'll let that cure for a while and then we'll be back. Alright, so it's been some time. We'll give it the tug test. Nice and tight. Alright, so the system's all back together. We got no leftover parts, so that's good. So all that's left to do is test the system. So for the two test games today, we got The Simpsons Road Rage, which is a silver game, and once again, Hot Wheels World Race, which is a blue game. So we'll start off with the silver game. I'm gonna make sure this all works. Seems to be working good now. The Simpsons looks so weird in 3D. You know, I never played this game. This pretty much just reminds me of a Simpsons version of Crazy Taxi.
What part of get in don't you understand? Careful, don't sit on my nachos. Tip, please.
I like coconut.
Seatbelt, schmeatbelt. Whoa, dude, I'm glad you came along.
I don't think I'm gonna make this one. Ah, crap. I'm definitely not making this one. Oh boy. Oh boy. Ah! Oh, I was so close. 7,000 now. I don't think that that's bad for the first time ever playing this. Alright, so we're gonna try a blueback game on this one. Hey, get back here. Alright, so read it. Let's see if it'll boot it. You know, I did forget that that Hot Wheels game on a previous project I was doing was actually hanging up. So we're gonna try Trigger Man. Oh my god. How many bullets is this guy gonna take? Oh, this is just terrible. This is not good aiming. And I'm dead. I did run into one problem while doing all the testing, and I'm sure you heard it while I was opening and closing the disk drive, but the tray seems like it was getting a little hung up. And then once in a while, it would kind of close, it would close on its own. So I don't normally do this, but I think it's going to help it out. So we're just going to put a little lube on some of the parts here that move. It should help it move along a little bit. Alright, let's see if that made a difference. So it's going to open and close it a bunch of times. Let's get that lubrication moving. Yeah, you can see that hopping is already gone. And so far it hasn't closed yet. Except I tried that hole once. Yeah, it's definitely moving a lot smoother than it was. So yeah, I think that little bit of grease on the tray was just all it needed to get to the finish line. I personally don't usually lubricate things that weren't lubricated from the factory just because of my philosophy. That's just something else that can accumulate a little bit of dust. But I think in this case, it was absolutely necessary to bring it over to the finish line. So, and plus it's on the bottom of the tray, so I don't think it's really going to be that big of a deal, and we didn't use that much lubrication anyway. So, I think it'll be fine. So with that, that wraps up the very first video in the DKOldies series. So this was a reject from them. They wrote this thing off and just punted it to the corner. I got it here, got it all completely cleaned and working as it should, and I know the next owner of this thing is going to love it. So thank you so much for coming along with me on this video. Like, share, subscribe, and all that good jazz. And leave some comments below. I've been absolutely loving reading them, so keep those comments coming. And with that, I'll catch you on the next video. And remember, fix it, don't ditch it. Have a good one.